What happened to American tennis? The last male Grand Slam champion was Andy Roddick, winning the US Open in 2003, and since then we had no male Grand Slam champions. And I can tell you guys that when I was growing up, my favorite players were John McEnroe, Jimmy Connors, Andre Agassi, and Pete Sampras. I love American tennis players. But when we look at the players today, the highest ranked male American player is John Isner, ranked at 25 in the world, and no American is coming anywhere close to winning a Grand Slam. So in today's video, I'm going to give you my opinion, what I think happened to American tennis. So guys, first of all, I want to show you something here. The courts are completely empty, and take a listen to that sound over there. These are pickleball courts, and they are always packed. You can hear that pickleball noise. This is happening here in Southeast Florida. Very often that you'll see nobody on the tennis courts, but absolutely packed pickleball courts. And if you followed me for a while, I know that I love to do research, I love numbers, and I'm going to provide some facts that might surprise you. So American tennis is not in as bad of a shape as people think it is. For example, the female American tennis players, they are by far the most dominating nation in the tennis world. I'm going to give you some numbers that are going to surprise you. So there are 18 female American players in the top 100. This is by far the most out of any country. The next country behind the United States is the Czech Republic with 9 players in the top 100, followed by Russia with 7, Romania with 5, and France and Spain with 4. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with American tennis on the female side. This has always been the case, that the American females are dominating the sport of tennis. And why is this the case? Well, one possible reason is that females are very strongly encouraged to do sports in the United States, while this might not necessarily be the case in some other countries. Now, in the past, American men have dominated tennis, and this has changed quite a bit. But these numbers that I'm about to give you will surprise you. There's still a lot of American male players in the top 100. If you take a look at the amount of players in the top 100, the country that has the most is France with 11, followed by Spain with 10, and the United States comes in third with 9 players in the top 100 of the ATP rankings. Now, while this might sound good, this is also a little bit alarming, because the United States is actually a great place to become a professional tennis player, because we have the beautiful weather, we have the most amount of courts out of anywhere in the world, all the best academies are here, all the best coaching is here. In fact, most of the European players will come to the United States to build a professional tennis career. So while being third in the world might sound great, if we compare the United States, which is a huge country, to a small country like Italy, who actually has 7 players in the top 100, and they're coming in at number 4 in the world ranking. So just that stat alone can tell you that there's a lot of good players in Europe. Now, in fact, there's 9 Europeans in the top 10, and there's 71 Europeans in the top 100 of the ATP rankings. So why are the European men dominating professional tennis? Well, first of all, the question of why the United States doesn't have a Grand Slam champion is not so much Europe's fault, but it's more the fault of the big 3. And there's actually some countries within Europe who are experiencing the same problems as the United States. Countries like Germany or Sweden, who used to be superpowers in tennis, they are not doing that great as of now. And even a country like Australia, who used to be a superpower in tennis, only has 4 players in the top 100. So why is this the case? Why are European players dominating the world rankings? See, 71% Europeans in the top 100, that is a big number. There has to be a reason why this is the case, and this has been going on for a long time. Now, many of you guys know that I grew up in Germany, and I played high-level tennis in Germany, and then I came to the United States and played college tennis. So I can tell you a little bit about my experience comparing Europe versus the United States. And I cannot speak for entire Europe. I'm going to just speak of Germany, because that's where I grew up playing, but other countries are going to be very similar. So here's what happens to a good player in Germany. You're going to start off playing junior tournaments just like here. But then much earlier than here in the United States, you're going to start transitioning to adult tennis. And this is where, in my opinion, the problem lies. See, there's a lot of great juniors in the United States, and junior tennis is very competitive from the ages of 10 to 14. But then once players get a little bit older, the transition for male players from the junior circuit onto the adult circuit is much better in Europe compared to the United States. And the reason why is the following. So when I grew up, I played junior tournaments and I was doing really well. I was among the top 20 best juniors in Germany. But then very early on, at the age of 15, I started playing adult tennis, meaning I was on a adult team. These are professional leagues that have many different divisions. And it starts in Germany with Bundesliga and then goes all the way down to Kreisliga. And this is something that every player participates in. And not only that, but they start very young, sometimes at the age of 14 or 15. So when I was 15, I started playing on an adult team while also continuing to play on a junior team. But not only that, I started playing adult tournaments. And these are prize money tournaments that are based on a national ranking that's very accurate. And this national ranking in Germany is based not on the points you collect at the tournaments, but it's based on the quality of players that you beat. So it's extremely accurate. And the way this national ranking is structured, it starts with the ATP players, so they're going to go first. So for example, now Alexander Zverev will obviously be #1 in Germany, and it goes down the rankings all the way to the last guy that has ATP points. So ATP points always have precedent over regular ranking points. So this is a highly accurate ranking that you're going to use when you play for a club. And if you're ranked very high in Germany, you also can get paid for it. And now when you play for a higher division, you're going to face really tough competition, meaning a lot of teams in Germany will purchase foreign players with ATP points. So the level is very high. So when I was 15, 16, I was already playing against players who had ATP points. And I was also using the ranking points that I collected during the league matches to start getting into tournaments. And these German prize money tournaments were limited in the draws. So there was 32 player draw or 64 player draw with qualifying. So it was based on your national ranking whether you could get into this tournament or not. And the prize money was very high, between 2,000 to 5,000 euros for the winner. So this means that there are going to be a lot of high-level ATP players entering a tournament of that level. Now, a lot of you guys ask me whether I play future. See, I started teaching very young, and I never wanted to leave my area in Germany and travel and be gone for a long periods of time. So I actually never played futures in Germany, but many other players have. So in addition to playing the professional leagues, playing these very competitive prize money tournaments, players also have the option of playing futures. And because Europe is so dense, you don't really have to fly to these futures. You can take your car and drive. You can find a lot of futures close by to where you live. So think about it this way. I did this for 3 years before going to college. And when I came to college, I already had a maturity as a player that many of the American players that I was facing in college didn't have. And the simple reason is they did not play adult tennis. They continued to play junior tennis until the age of 18. And this is not because they're weak players. There's a lot of great players in the United States in juniors, but the transition from juniors to adult tennis is something that's very difficult. See, there's not something that you can see with the naked eye. Players will look like they have great strokes, but there's a maturity to a tennis player that can only be developed from playing at a certain level. When you play at a high level, your level will go up. If you continue playing at a lower level, your level will likely not rise above. So when I came to college, I won 90% of my matches playing at position #1 with a very good schedule, because my coach Mel Purcell was able to get us a really tough Division I schedule, and I won all my matches. And the reason why was not because my forehand was better or my backhand was better. It was simply that I was more mature of a player. I was exposed to a higher level of tennis than many of my counterparts in college. And this is not just me saying that. 75% of the top 100 in Division I men's tennis are Europeans, just very similar to the ATP rankings. And very interesting is that when I finished college, Baylor won the NCAA men's title with 6 Europeans. And then almost 15 years later, Wake Forest won the NCAA title with 6 European players as well, which tells you that really not much has changed when it comes to college tennis, and also not much has changed when it comes to professional men's tennis as well. I'm going to give you a link in the description of a great TED Talk from a player named Eric Budorak, who was a Division III player who went to France, who has a very similar system to Germany, and he played for the clubs there and also played prize money tournaments, and he managed to become one of the greatest doubles players in the world. And he had a great TED Talk talking about some of the similar things he experienced that I did. So what is the solution to American tennis? Well, I think the one thing that's really bad about American tennis is that there is really no national adult ranking. See, the national ranking on the USTA is based on points, and you just cannot do that, because I can guarantee you guys that you do not know who the #1 tennis player is on the USTA. You probably never heard of that person, and everybody knows that John Isner is the #1 American tennis player. So he should be #1. So there has to be a precedent for the ATP players and then the college players. So there has to be a system where it's based on level and not solely based on points, because somebody can just simply play a bunch of tournaments, collect a bunch of points, and then be top 10 in the nation. There also has to be more prize money tournaments similar to the ones they have in Europe, with big purses, where it's going to attract a lot of high-level players. Because if you're offering, for example, like here in Florida, I used to play a lot of prize money tournaments when I moved here. The winner would get $500 or even less, sometimes $300, and no ATP player is going to sign up for a tournament like that, so the level overall is going to be very weak. But if you offer high purse prize money tournaments, there's going to be a lot of ATP caliber players signing up, and this is going to be good for everybody. It's going to be good for the juniors who are going to enter these tournaments. They're going to be exposed to a higher level of tennis. Now, one thing that's going to be very difficult to change in the United States is the club system. See, there's a lot of tradition in Europe with the way clubs work. This is not only for tennis, it's for soccer, it's for all sports. The way these leagues are structured, this is not something that's going to be easy to replicate here. But there needs to be some kind of club environment where players can play for a team at a high level to get that high level match exposure. So guys, look at this. We got 4 courts here, nobody playing. This hurts my heart because I love tennis and also love American tennis, and I hope that we get a lot of great American players who's going to win Grand Slam, because that's what's going to excite a lot of people and it's going to bring back the interest in tennis. I hope that there's going to be a change made and we get back to the glory days of McEnroe, Connors, Agassi and Sampras.